my co-stock. I just want to mention, because it's relevant to what Andy was talking about earlier and some of the things we're about to talk about. Again, the Farm Alliance website has recordings of all of the trainings. And also, if you are thinking about scaling up into commercial, a lot of these questions about sort of food safety, soil standards, marketing collectively, a lot of that are things. Those are things that we're dealing with now and addressing for urban growers specifically in Baltimore City. So please check it out. Talk to me afterwards if you're interested. I do have some business cards on the table if you want to get in touch. But anyway, we'd love to hear from you. So first off, we're going to have Dave Love, who is a researcher, staff, I don't know what you call this.
Assistant scientist.
Assistant scientist, awesome. At the Center for a Livable Future, which is a fantastic research for a lot of us doing food access and food production in Baltimore City. The Center for a Livable Future is out of Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, and just is an amazing partner for a lot of us in doing studies, securing funding, accessing a lot of great information. And one of their latest projects is the Aquaponics Project, which Dave has been pulling together. So he's going to tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll hear from a couple other folks afterwards. So take it away.
Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me in the back? Okay.
No.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. Is this good back there now?
You can step forward.
Okay. So what I'm going to talk to you today is so this aquaponics project we've got going on, and a little bit about the rationale or background for why this is an important topic. So I thought I'd kick the slideshow off with something about global fish production. So we're talking about tilapia in Baltimore, but this really has its roots in the global economy. So as you can see from this slide, this is global fish production. The dark blue is wild caught fish caught from the ocean. The light blue is aquaculture or farm raised fish. And just something to grab your attention here is the dark blue line has not increased since maybe the mid-'80s. So we haven't been catching any more fish from the ocean. And that's because we're running out of fish from the ocean. And that's partly why aquaculture has sort of taken the place of catching fish from the ocean. So that's why aquaponics is sort of a field that's really growing now. We're realizing we need to raise fish, and we really just can't be catching fish from the sea. We're doing an awful job managing wild fisheries. So this is a map of the world. You can see on a scale from red to green, where red is poor management and green is good management, most of the ocean is being poorly managed. We're extracting too many fish. Large predatory species are going to be wiped out, or at least diminished to the amount that they're not going to be able to come back. And this is a reality we're going to see in the next 30, 40 years. You can really grow a lot of things and call it aquaculture. Fish are some, salmon, catfish, carp, tilapia, but you can also do shellfish aquaculture in Chesapeake Bay, oysters, for example, crustaceans, shrimp, and you can also do aquaculture and raise algae or seaweed. Here's some, just to give you an understanding of what the different types of aquaculture are. The top two are aquaculture that's done in closed systems, either in a tank inside, like the top left, or in a pond, like the top right. Or you can do aquaculture in the open water. So that could be like, Vietnam, where these are like open water cages underneath people's houses, and or in open water systems out in the ocean. In Hawaii, they're doing this. In Norway, the UK, certainly both coasts of Canada are doing open ocean aquaculture. You think farm salmon, that's a big example of open ocean aquaculture. So where aquaponics fits in, we're a closed system, and we raise fish in really tight quarters, so an intensive growing. So where the aquaponics is the top left of this. So what is aquaponics? Basically, this diagram describes it kind of in a nutshell. You raise fish. The fish waste is broken down by beneficial bacteria. They break down the fish ammonia into nitrite and nitrate. And what do you know? Nitrate is great for plants. So you can grow leafy greens really easily off of fish waste that's broken down. And as the plants pull up the nitrates, that cleans the water for the fish. So this is often, so what are some of the benefits of aquaponics? Well, we're raising a couple different crops in the same space. So this is considered polyculture and not monoculture, not just salmon in net pens or not just soybeans on a monoculture field. We are responsible for our own waste. The fish poop, we don't just let that go out to sea and pollute the water. We take onto it, we hold it, and treat it so we can do beneficial things like raise crops. So we really own the waste, and the waste that's sort of the goal of the system. We try to mimic natural systems. You'll see a lot of these photos I'm going to show you of aquaponic systems don't really look that natural, but on a biological basis, we're really trying to mimic some of the microbial communities that would live in nature, and the plant life. Instead of wetlands, in nature, we're using edible crops. It's pretty water efficient. You lose a couple percent of your tank volume each day, which you recharge from well or city water, and so you don't use a whole lot of water to grow plants and grow the fish. There definitely are some drawbacks also. You have to have a source of power, a source of clean water. There's startup costs. There are a lot more than just seeds and tools. You have to have tanks and especially special equipment types. There's also a lot of knowledge that has to come with this. So checking out other farms is a good idea first before you want to build something. Some people also have trouble sourcing fish. There have been a lot of consolidation in the fish hatchery business in the last 10 years, 15 years. And so if you want to buy small fish, you may be buying them from Florida or New Mexico and picking them up at the airport, which is, I think, a bit of a drawback. So here's some examples of just a hobby system, something you could create in a couple hours if you have a spare fish tank and a tub. And basically this system is really just what it looks like. The water's pumped from the fish tank up to the tub. It's drained through some gravel media and back into the fish tank. Here's a little bit bigger system. This is using one 55-gallon drum that was sawed in half. It's the same approach. One pump, you pump it back, you pump it up to the plant grow bed, and then it just trickles back. And when it trickles down, it creates a little oxygen in the water, so the fish are happy. But you probably can't put more than 5 or 10 fish in here, so you're really limited by the size. Next slide. This is a little bit bigger system with really the same design principles in mind. I think this is a photo from a company that sells these as a kit. They might sell this for like $1,000, for example. So one thing to notice in this system is there are 2 tanks, and if you're looking at a small system, you don't need a lot of treatment to treat the waste that's coming out of this. Most of the waste is just trapped in this sediment bed. And maybe once a year you would scoop out that sediment and wash off the sand, and that's how you get rid of the waste. Next slide. The New York Times covered aquaponics. They have a really nice graphic that kind of explains how the system works. This adds a 3rd tank in the top as a reservoir tank. could be useful. I don't think most people have reservoir tanks, so it's not super important, but I really like that we got coverage in the New York Times because I think that just raises awareness so much. Next slide. So when you have these sort of plant grow tanks, there are a couple different styles of tanks that people use. This is expanded clay balls, and so I think, like I mentioned, that sort of traps the sediment. You know, roots can form in this matrix really easily, and you basically just fill it with your fish tank water and it drains out. And so you do this thing where you fill it, drain it, almost like a toilet bowl. Next slide. If you've heard of Growing Power in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is their setup. It's really similar to these, you know, these systems where you've got the fish on the bottom and the plants up top. You take fishy water and you pump it up to the top where you grow your plants, and that trickles down. And this is, you could call it a flood drain system or an ebb and flow system. A second technique for growing plants in aquaponics is using something that looks like a household gutter. And inside this gutter is a little spray mister. This will look really familiar if you've seen hydroponics. This is a technique that's really popular in hydroponic farming. And this is what it would look like in a hoop house. You'd have, you know, your fish tank maybe off to the side, and that's where all your nutrients are being produced, and you pump that through your tubing, and you can raise leafy greens really quite easily in this setup. The third technique, how people raise produce in aquaponics, is a raft system. This is a styrofoam board, and basically you can see the roots are really healthy. The board floats in the water. You know, vegetable matter on top, the roots on the bottom, and they'll just suck water out constantly, and the plants will be really, really happy in here. To do this, next slide, you can see you can expand it, you can scale it up, fill a whole greenhouse with these 4-foot wide beds, and conveniently the raft material is usually 4x8, so it fits in really nicely into these long greenhouses. I know around Philly, there's Cheney University has a setup that's a lot like this. They grow basil, and they sell it, you know, with the root ball attached all over Philadelphia. So I'll just give you a couple slides of what our system looks like. And we're at Silver Arboretum, which is in North Baltimore. It's off I-83 Northern Parkway. Here's what it looked like last year. Pretty empty, pretty intimidatingly empty. And here's the design of the system. We've got the fish tanks are here. They're plumbed to these smaller 55-gallon drums that collect the sediment for us. And then from there we pump it to those plant tanks, which are about 300 square feet of growing area, and the plant tanks are about 3,000 gallons, and the fish tanks are about 1,000 gallons. So last summer, just clearing that greenhouse, it was really hot in there. I didn't know about shade cloth, which tells you I'm kind of green at this. So it was really, really hot. So we're laying down the frame of the fish tanks, kind of building up the fish tanks, arranging the plant tanks. Just a shot of what these solids, these tanks that collect solids look like. Empty fish tanks. We're starting to, this was in the end of the summer, starting to plumb the tanks together. So this winter we were kind of roughed in, ready to go, but it was a little too cold for us to get started. We wanted to wait for the spring. Next slide. So we added water, it's really exciting. Added some rafts, which if you go back one, we decided to go with a raft growing system as compared to the gutter system or the ebb and flow gravel bed system, because the rafts are a little bit easier to work with, and you don't have to clean, we wouldn't have to scrape out gravel every year, which would be a real pain, a lot of work. The gutter system, it'd be hard to get the amount of square footage that you need to treat all the water from our system with just gutters. We didn't have enough space. We're in this 1,000 square foot greenhouse. It just wouldn't work for us. So the raft system turned out to be the best way for us to do it. In these rafts, we're growing in net pots and using expanded clay. Here's a look at one of the tanks. We built the growing power system model just to kind of compare, see how it works. And we actually started our fish in here, and the fish have been in about 6 weeks, and you can see we've got lots of tomatoes, we got water spinach, mint, watercress, all growing really great, just off of fish waste. This is the whole system view, and you can see we haven't gotten the plant started yet, but we've just added fish to the first fish tank in this system. So I'm really excited, looking forward to producing a lot more information about what we're doing. This is a demonstration project. We're going to study it. We're going to look at the economics and report back so everybody knows what, and make it as transparent as possible. Here's what we're finding, and how can this work as an urban ag demonstration project in the city, and how can we translate it for other